federal charges just filed against the man accused of storming the White House Correspondents Dinner with a gun. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. I'm Annie Yu. 2 hours ago, that suspect, 31-year-old Cole Allen of California, stood before a judge. He pleaded not guilty to using a firearm during a crime of violence, transportation of a firearm with intent to commit a felony, and attempting to assassinate the president. Prosecutors say he traveled here by train and stayed at the Washington Hilton where Saturday's dinner was held. A manifesto allegedly written by Allen said he planned to target Trump administration officials. We've got live team coverage for you now at 4. Rafael Sanchez-Cruz has more details from this afternoon's court appearance. Matt Gregory is digging into security concerns surrounding Saturday's dinner. Rafael, let's start with you. What happened today in court?
Look, Annie, if found guilty of attempting to assassinate the president, Cole Allen faces a maximum of life in prison. The assistant U.S. attorney laid out her argument pretty clearly. She says Allen traveled to Washington, D.C., crossing multiple state lines with a firearm and attempted to assassinate President Donald J. Trump with a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. Now, Allen, as you mentioned, the 31-year-old from California, is also charged with transportation of a firearm or ammunition in interstate commerce and discharge of a firearm during a crime of violence. Allen was appointed 2 public defenders today. He walked into court wearing what looked like blue hospital clothes. Now, before walking into the courtroom, Allen's defense attorneys handed the U.S. Marshals black dress shoes for him to wear. Allen told the judge he has a master's degree in computer science, and when asked by the judge if he had consumed drugs which could cloud his understanding of the proceedings, Allen said no, because he's being accused of attempting to kill the president, which is a domestic terrorism charge. That's why the U.S. Attorney's Office is arguing that Allen should remain in custody as he awaits trial. However, one of his defense attorneys argued that Allen has no prior criminal history. Whether he will remain in custody will be determined in a hearing set for Thursday morning. Now, what the judge also did today is unseal the case, allowing federal officials to speak. Let's listen to U.S. Attorney for D.C. Jeanine Pirro, what she said just 30 minutes ago.
The manifesto also makes clear about his expected rules of engagement. You know, you can look at it and read it, and it may seem kind of la, but at the end, make no mistake, he says, I am targeting the administration officials. They are my targets, and I'm prioritizing from the top down, the highest ranking from the lowest. Let this be a message to anyone who thinks that Washington, D.C. is the place to act out political violence. And if you are willing to do so with a firearm and cross state lines, we will find you, we will track your steps from the inception of your plan, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah, today we also heard reporters asking the acting attorney general whether we knew if Allen actually had fired a gun. He says he does believe so, but that this is still an active investigation and that right now they've given as much information as they can to the public. This has been a pending question throughout the weekend. We also know that on May 11th, there's another preliminary hearing scheduled here at U.S. federal court in the district. Back to you, Annie.
All right, Rafael Sanchez-Cruz with the latest. Thank you. You heard Jeanine Pirro mention at the manifesto. Well, minutes before the shooting, Cole Allen allegedly posted a manifesto. He wrote that he was planning to target Trump administration officials. CBS News correspondent Nora O'Donnell read part of that manifesto to President Trump during an interview on 60 Minutes last night.
He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person, you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
Nora also asked the president about the current climate of political violence. He said he doesn't think it's any worse than years past, but he did say, quote, the hate speech of the Democrats is very dangerous. New this hour, First Lady Melania Trump is criticizing Jimmy Kimmel for jokes that he made before the dinner. Here's one of them.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
The First Lady called Kimmel's jokes corrosive and said they deepen the political sickness within America. She also called on ABC to, quote, take a stand. So far, they have not issued a statement. Well, tonight, we're also looking at the security fallout from the Correspondents' Dinner. Our team coverage continues with our Matt Gregory at the Washington Hilton Hotel.
Saturday night's frightening scene.
I heard pop, 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 which I figured to be gunshots.
As a gunman tried to breach the White House Correspondents' Dinner ballroom until Secret Service stopped him.
We heard Secret Service pulling out the president.
Today, there's a different light on the dinner's security.
I think everyone is now Monday morning quarterbacking pretty aggressively.
We talked to former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Douglas Smith. Now, Smith and other former DHS leadership told us the highest level of security is what's called a National Special Security Event. In D.C., that would be things like the NATO conference in 2024.
Obviously, the biggest factor is just size. This was while a significant event, it's not hundreds of thousands of people the way you would get at a footprint for a Super Bowl or World Cup.
Smith and others told me an NSSE would call for more in-depth security checkpoints and a significant shutdown of the area.
Unless you're willing to buy out the entire hotel, create a security perimeter around the entire hotel, and then, weeks in advance be screening before they come in. There's only so much you can do.
Smith says keep this in mind. The White House Correspondents' Dinner is a private event that has, not in any of our experts' recent memory, gotten that designation.
So that's the most important thing to remember. The Secret Service did their job. The president was protected, the vice president, cabinet members, guests in the ballroom.
But Smith says expect Secret Service to do a thorough evaluation of the breach.
I think as they do what we would call a hot wash after this, they'll see perhaps where their perimeters they could have pushed out further.
That was our Matt Gregory reporting. President Trump said the shooting proves the need for his White House ballroom project. Yesterday, the DOJ asked the National Trust for Historic Preservation to drop its lawsuit against the ballroom, saying it's necessary for the president's security. The trust lawyer said they plan to move forward with the suit. They also said in part, quote, your assertion that this lawsuit puts the president's life at grave risk is incorrect and irresponsible. Simply put, this case does not jeopardize the president's safety in any way. The trust lawsuit argues that Trump overstepped his authority by moving forward with the project without approval from key federal agencies and Congress. And we've been with you for every moment since this attack at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. We're going to continue to share updates here on air, online, and streaming on WUSA 9+.